I don't think I would be the person I am today had I not said, yes, I'm up for that challenge. Let's jump.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, warm welcome. Thank you for watching us today from any part of the world. I'm Nicolette Huszák, the creator of this interview series. My guest today is a seasoned global HR leader and professional with over 20 years experience in multinational companies and more recently the startup world. She's held global chief HR officer and chief talent roles, worked in 7 countries, and is a recognized keynote speaker. I would like to introduce you this very special person, Victoria Bethlehem, and let her inspire you too. Hello, Victoria. Thank you for accepting my invitation and being here today.
Hello, Nicolette. Good to see you again after all these years of first meeting you.
Exactly. It was a few years ago when we met first in Prague at the Women in Leadership Conference. And actually, you are originally from Australia, have lived in Europe, the USA, South Africa, and you now live in Singapore.
That's right.
Yeah. 2021 and 2020 and 2021 is also an extraordinary year. And there are differences between continents, how people live their lives in the different parts of the world. Victoria, you have spent the last 4 years living in Singapore. How does this location differ to those you lived in before? And what are the differences and changes since COVID?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Nicolette, and great to be a part of your series. So thank you for inviting me. Look, when we met, I was indeed living in Zurich, Switzerland. And I think if I was to do a comparison between living in Switzerland to Singapore, the first thing I would have to comment on is the difference in the weather. In Europe, you have 4 distinct seasons. In Singapore, you have 2. I always joke they're hot and hotter. It's a highly networked region, I find. There is a real mix of Asian and Caucasian nationalities here, which brings incredible diversity. Diversity in the sense of thinking, living, communication styles, and so forth. So all of that has been a fascinating learning journey for me over the 4 years that my family and I have been based here. In relation to your second question, I'm sure you're aware, Singapore is a very small island. It's just under 6 million people. It literally takes you 1 hour to drive from one side of the island to the other. So during the COVID restrictions and lockdown periods, it's been quite daunting living in such a small physical landmass and not being able to get off to go to visit family abroad. So that's probably been the biggest challenge during the COVID period, is just feeling so isolated. However, right now I'm doing this recording sitting in Sydney. I've come over to visit family. It's freezing cold, so my body is still adjusting. But so it's good to see that travel now is starting to open up for those in Singapore.
Sounds very, very exciting, just flying from one country to another. And in the meantime, you can have different feelings about the weather, for example. So it's really, really interesting. Just a little bit back to the pandemic situation, because it's obviously affected most of us. It has impact on our mental state, our physical well-being, in our personal life, and also on the organizational level. I have several questions, so if you don't mind, I would ask them, and then you can answer it. So one is, how were you affected, if you were affected at all? How could manage this situation within the company, for example, well-being at work? And the third one is, what actions have you implemented? How have you involved the employees, the teams?
Yeah, very topical question. So let me answer those in the order that you've just given. How was I affected? Well, as I mentioned earlier, that feeling of isolation and not being able to get back to family has been extremely tough, especially when loved ones back home have become unwell. And that has created anxiety and anguish at not being able to just jump on a plane as easily as one would have in the years gone by. But thank goodness for technology and for being able to stay connected in the virtual world. I don't know how we live without it these days. In my personal life, we've had 3 lockdowns, long lockdowns in Singapore, and I've got 2 teenage children who, like many families, have had to do homeschooling, home entertainment. I think my children have been an absolute inspiration to me. They've rarely complained, and they've just kind of got on and done it. I guess they live in a very technology-driven world, so for them it was less of a conflict than for some of us older people. Myself, I refer to there, not your listeners. But one of the things that we used to do during the lockdown periods was on the weekends, each member of the family would have to nominate 3 activities that everybody in the family had to do that weekend. And that was actually a lot of fun because we learnt and we did some really bizarre and unusual and different things. I remember one weekend my son wanted to learn how to make red velvet cupcakes, and my daughter wanted to make origami animals, and I wanted to learn how to do a French braid. So, everyone in the family down tools and got involved in those activities together. So we had some laughs along the way in those lockdown times. As far as managing this within companies, I think what I've done is what a lot of organizations have done, and that is just made sure that you stay in more regular contact with your people, frequent checking in. When starting those conversations, being genuine and authentic about asking how they are doing, and not just taking the very light answers of, oh, I'm fine, drilling down and really inquiring, well, are you? What are you doing? How are you fine? How are you making sure that you're staying in a good mental headspace? I think thirdly, any opportunity where we could meet face to face, even if it was a very limited groups, we have done. Keeping people updated and regularly communicating when the return to work would be, when the face-to-face interactions would take place. In the last 18 months, most people in Singapore have spent more time working from home than they have in the office. So, each and every time there was an update from the government on when that would change, we regularly communicated that and kept our people informed and giving them that thing to look forward to. So I think that regular communication, checking in, keeping people informed, and showing that you care have all been critical. We've done a lot of orientations and inductions. Once again, I think many companies have been in the same position virtually, and making sure that there's a high touch and lots of different people for new joiners to connect with has been fundamental to a successful onboarding program. So those are some of the things that I've done and we've done collectively as a family and in the business environment.
Regarding the teenagers, my daughter is 12 years old, so I'm absolutely and understand what are you talking about. Regarding the organizational part, absolutely, there's a big change. So I think in the future, definitely work from home would be the new normal. Maybe we can say it, not just an extra what companies can give. So I'm very curious how will change in the future. What helped you to remain motivated or inspired? Because it was absolutely extraordinary.
What I've done to kind of keep myself motivated and inspired is to make sure that when I'm not working, there's always that next thing to look forward to. There's always that next activity, be it with family or friends, or just something in my calendar that I go, wow, that's a bit different this week, or, a bit of a change to the norm. So I've done things like a photography class, one-on-one with a professional photographer based in Singapore. I've learned to wakeboard with my kids. Our family got our scuba diving accreditation. I'm about to start mahjong lessons, which is a game that's played a lot here in Asia. So, I'm just always trying to find something new and different to do. I figure if I can't travel, then I may as well spend my time and energy into doing activities that I might not ordinarily have done if I had been traveling or, visiting family back home. So that's what's kept me going. The other thing that's inspired me, as I said earlier, was just being around positive people with great attitudes. I think young people, children in particular, have been amazing in this place for me, my own children included. And at the end of the day, knowing that this too shall pass. I think a healthy attitude is important, and knowing this isn't forever. So let's just make the best of this situation whilst the new normal comes into effect.
Victoria, as we are on a professional platform, I would like to ask you, as a leader professionally, how have you changed?
So I don't know that I've changed so much, but I think what I now have is a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to observing non-verbal cues. Sitting and watching and talking to people on video screens all day long, or computer screens all day long, has enabled me to recognize the importance of those non-verbal cues. The way a person breathes, their delay in responding, body language, where do they look at when connecting with you virtually. All of these things perhaps were a little less obvious when you're meeting face to face and focusing more so on the verbal communication. So I think I've become more aware of that, and it certainly led me to reading some really good materials on the topic, and I would encourage others, if they've not already done so, to do so. I think the second thing is that I've realized through this pandemic that everybody has a unique story of something that they're dealing with, some kind of challenge. The number of people I know who have family members overseas who have sadly passed away or fallen ill, siblings having children, major events and birthdays that have been missed due to people not being able to be with loved ones. And through hearing those stories, I think I've developed a deeper sense of empathy for what others are going through. So those would be probably my two takeaways from living and working during a pandemic.
Empathy. Yeah, it has a big significance. Definitely what I feel, also feel for the others. As you mentioned that everybody has a unique story. Can you share a personal story which would be maybe inspiring for the audience?
Well, I'll let the others listening to this judge if it's inspiring or not. I have been afforded so many opportunities through leaders that I've worked with, leaders that I've known in my network, and they have approached me with these opportunities throughout my career. And many of them have been quite different career path or roles that I would necessarily have chosen, but they presented as really interesting challenges, opportunities to learn, to live abroad, to work with different cultures, to experience different teams and remits. And each time I've said, yeah, let's do it. Let's give that a go. And I'm so glad that I did, because I don't think I would be the person I am today had I not said, yes, I'm up for that challenge, let's jump. And so I guess my learning from that is that being outside one's comfort zone is the greatest classroom, I think, in the world. And I would encourage anyone and everyone to regularly put themselves into that space, because I think that's where the learning, that's where the joy, and that's where the adventure, which are all three very important things to me, can find you in the world of work.
Adventure sounds very, very good and exciting, just like traveling. So hopefully there won't no more restrictions, and nothing will come again. Actually, I have one more question. What advice would you give to the audience who will see this interview?
Well, I often refer to the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai, and it's one of my favorites. And whenever anyone asks me, what advice have you got for me in regards to my career or, a next step, I often refer to it. And the reason I like it so much is because it's simple, it's easy to remember, and it's very relatable. The philosophy is made up of 4 elements, and basically it's centered around, so 4 elements: do what you enjoy, do what you are good at, do what can earn you an income, and do what the world needs.
Sounds very interesting, and it's strange that I just started to read this book, so I'm very curious what will be the end. So nice connection again. Well, Victoria, I think Ikigai philosophy would be a good final thought for our audience. So I would like to thank you for this inspirational talk today, and I wish you further success in the future.
Thank you, Nicolette, and thank you for letting me be a part of this great program. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.